Welcome to English Starline. Today, you will hear a story that will help you practice English and also change the way you think about success. This story is about dreams, about falling down many times, and about one man who refused to give up. The name of the story is Nothing is Free: The Humiliations That Nearly Broke Him. The main character is a young man named Evan. He comes from a small village. He has no money, no good job, and no one believes in him. But Evan has a big dream. He wants to open his own bakery. He wants to help his family. He wants to prove to the world that he can do something great. But the road is not easy. Evan fails again and again. Every time he tries something, he falls. Every time he hopes, life hits him harder. People laugh at him. They say, "Stop dreaming, you are wasting your time." But Evan keeps going. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt small, weak, or alone? Have people told you that you can't do something? Then this story is for you. Listen carefully. Practice your English. And remember, sometimes a story can change your life. Let's begin. Evan was 21 years old. He lived in a cold, quiet village between two hills. The streets were narrow, the houses were old, and the sky was often gray. Every morning, Evan woke up in a small wooden room with no heating. The windows were cracked, and the roof leaked when it rained. Evan's family had very little. His father, Lucas, used to work in a factory, but he lost his job 2 years ago. Now he stayed home, tired and silent. Evan's mother, Maria, was sick. She couldn't walk much and needed medicine they couldn't afford. Evan worked part-time cleaning the train station, but the money was never enough. They were behind on rent. Sometimes they didn't have enough food. One evening, Evan opened the kitchen cabinet and saw only 2 potatoes and a small bag of rice. He gave the food to his mother and went to bed hungry. But Evan had a dream. A big dream. He wanted to open his own bakery right in the village. He wanted to bake fresh bread, cookies, and cakes. He wanted people to say, "Evan's bread is the best." He wanted to help his parents, give them a better life, and one day even open a second shop. But when he told people his dream, they laughed. Some said, "You can't even buy bread, and you want to sell it?" Others said, "Forget dreams, Evan. Go find a real job." Even his old school friends made jokes behind his back. But Evan didn't stop dreaming. Every night, before he slept, he closed his eyes and imagined a small bakery with warm lights, the smell of fresh bread, and his family smiling inside. It was just a dream, but it was his dream, and he was ready to fight for it. One cold morning, Evan woke up before the sun. He wore his old coat, tied his shoes with broken laces, and left the house quietly. He walked for 2 hours through mud and fog to reach the nearest town. His plan was simple. He wanted to ask the owner of a bakery to let him sell bread in his village. When he reached the bakery, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. His stomach growled, but he stayed strong. He stepped inside and met Mr. Patel, the owner, a serious-looking man with thick glasses and a white apron. Evan stood straight and said, "Sir, I want to sell your bread in my village. People there walk many kilometers just to buy bread. If you give me some loaves, I will sell them and return your money tomorrow. Please just give me a chance." Mr. Patel looked at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. "You want me to give you bread for free? Look at your shoes. You don't even look like a seller. You look like someone who needs bread, not someone who can sell it." Evan felt his face turn red. He tried to speak, but no words came. Mr. Patel shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. I run a business, not a charity." Evan walked out slowly. The sky was darker now, and it started to rain. He didn't have an umbrella. Cold water soaked through his coat. He kept walking, head down, back to his village. On the way home, a group of boys from his school saw him. One of them shouted, "Hey, Evan, where's your bakery? Did it close already?" They all laughed. Evan didn't answer. He kept walking, water dripping from his sleeves, his heart heavy. When he reached home, he didn't say anything to his parents. He just went to his room, sat on his bed, and stared at the wall. That night, Evan didn't sleep. He kept hearing Mr. Patel's laugh and the voices of the boys in his head. His dream felt further away than ever. For the first time, he thought maybe they were right. Maybe this dream was too big. Maybe it wasn't for someone like him. 2 days later, Evan made a new plan. He didn't want to give up. He believed if he tried again, something good might happen. He went to his neighbor, an old man named Mr. Roy, and asked if he could borrow some money. Just enough to buy 10 loaves of bread. Mr. Roy looked at him and said, "Are you sure, Evan? You already look tired." But Evan nodded and said, "I just need one chance." Mr. Roy gave him a small amount of money. Evan thanked him and walked all the way back to the town. This time, he didn't go to Mr. Patel. He found a small bakery run by a young woman named Tina. She agreed to sell him 10 loaves at a discount. Evan returned to the village with the bread in a big plastic bag. The next morning, he stood near the bus stop with a cardboard sign that said, "Fresh bread, please try." His hands were cold and his voice was quiet, but he smiled at every person who passed. Most people ignored him. Some looked at the bread and kept walking. One woman said, "Is this clean? It looks old." Another man asked for a free sample, took a bite, and threw it on the ground. Evan's face burned with shame. He had worked so hard just to be laughed at again. Only one old man bought a loaf. The rest of the bread stayed in the bag, growing cold and wet from the morning fog. At noon, it started to rain. Evan had no cover. The bread became soggy. People began to cross the road to avoid him. A group of schoolboys saw him and laughed. One of them said, "Look, the bread man is back. Maybe he should eat it all himself." Evan stood there in the rain, holding a wet bag full of ruined bread. No one came. No one helped. After 3 more hours, he walked home slowly. The bread was heavy, but not as heavy as his heart. He gave 2 loaves to his mother and father. He threw the rest in a garbage bin behind the house. He went to his room and sat in silence. He didn't cry, but his eyes stayed open all night. His mother knocked on the door and asked, "Are you okay, Evan?" He replied, "I'm fine." But he was not fine. Inside, something was breaking. He thought, maybe this dream is not for people like me. Maybe the world is right. Maybe I should stop. But Evan didn't stop. He was tired. He was hurt. But something inside him still whispered, "Try again." This time, he had a new idea. He would not wait for people to come to him. He would go to them. He would sell the bread door to door. He borrowed a few coins from his sister to buy 5 loaves. He walked to Tina's bakery once more. She looked at him with tired eyes and said, "You again? Are you sure this is worth it?" Evan said, "I have to try." With 5 warm loaves in a cloth bag, he returned to his village and started knocking on doors. The first door opened a little. A man looked at him and said, "What do you want?" Evan smiled and said, "Fresh bread, made this morning only." The man closed the door before Evan could finish. At the second house, an old lady opened the door. Evan spoke again, soft and polite. But the woman just said, "No thank you, I buy from town," and shut the door gently. At the third house, a man opened the door wide. He listened to Evan for a moment, then shouted, "Are you begging? Go away. Don't bother people with your silly dream." Then he slammed the door so hard it shook the frame. Evan took a deep breath and moved on. At the 4th house, no one answered. At the 5th house, a child opened the door, saw Evan, and ran away laughing. Somewhere behind the wall, someone said, "It's that bread boy again." Evan looked down at the bag. Only 1 loaf was gone. 4 still remained. His hands were numb. His feet were sore. But the worst pain was inside. He felt invisible, like a ghost walking through his own village. He sat on the edge of a stone wall near the road. The bag rested beside him. People walked by, but no one looked at him. A dog came and sniffed the bag, then walked away. Even the dog didn't want his bread. That night he didn't go home. He stayed at the train station where he worked part-time. He sat in the corner near the cleaning supplies, pulled his jacket tight, and tried to sleep sitting up. His stomach growled, but he had no money left. Tears filled his eyes, but he didn't let them fall. He whispered to himself, "Maybe this is all I'll ever be. Maybe I'm not strong enough." He remembered the first time he ever baked bread with his mother as a child. She had smiled and said, "One day you will make people happy with your hands." But now his hands were empty, and his heart was full of pain. That night, as the cold wind blew through the cracks in the train station wall, Evan asked himself one hard question. Is this dream still worth it? Or should I finally let it go? The next morning, Evan woke up with a sore back and a heavy heart. The train station was quiet. His clothes were wrinkled, and his face looked older than his age. He picked up the bag with the old bread and walked out into the cold morning air. As he passed by a small tea stall near the market, an old woman sitting there called out to him, "Hey, young man, you look tired. Come, sit down." Evan hesitated, then sat on the wooden bench beside her. She poured him a cup of hot tea without asking. He wrapped his hands around the cup. It was the first warmth he felt in days. She looked at him kindly and said, "What's your story, boy?" Evan didn't want to talk, but the words came out. He told her everything: the bakery dream, the rejections, the rain, the laughter, the doors closing again and again. When he finished, the old woman nodded slowly and said, "Let me tell you something. The strongest trees grow in the hardest storms. Don't stop just because people laugh. Most people don't understand dreams. That's why they never grow." Evan looked at her. Her face was full of wrinkles, but her eyes were strong. She smiled and said, "If this dream is still in your heart after all this pain, it means it's real. Don't walk away from it now. The world needs more people like you." That moment was small. Just a few kind words and a cup of tea. But to Evan, it felt like a light in the dark. He stood up and said thank you. She simply said, "Go bake your dream, son." That evening, Evan made a decision. He washed his clothes, cleaned his shoes, and packed an empty bag. The next morning, before the sun came up, he walked to Mr. Patel's bakery once again. Mr. Patel looked surprised when Evan walked in. "You again?" he asked. Evan stood tall and said, "I failed 3 times. People laughed. I lost money. But I'm not here for charity. I'm here because I believe in this dream. Please give me just 5 loaves. I will return with your money the same day." Mr. Patel looked at him closely. He didn't smile. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he finally said, "All right, 5 loaves. One day. If you don't come back, don't ever come again." Evan nodded. "Thank you, sir." He placed the warm loaves into his clean bag, held it tightly, and walked out with a quiet fire in his heart. This time, he had a plan. This time, he would not stand in one place and wait. He would make people stop. He would make them smile. He found a clean spot near the village park and set up a small wooden crate. He made a new sign with bold letters. "Fresh bread. Free sample, try 1 bite." He wore his best shirt, stood tall, and smiled at every person who passed. The fight was not over. But something had changed. Evan had found the spark again. And this time, he was not letting it go. Evan stood near the park with his small wooden crate and fresh loaves in a clean bag. His new sign, written with a thick black marker, said, Fresh bread. Free sample. Try one bite. He took a deep breath and waited. At first, people passed without stopping. Some looked at the sign but kept walking. Evan kept smiling. "Good morning. Would you like to try a small piece?" No pressure, just a taste. Finally, a young woman stopped. She looked at the bread, then at Evan. "Is it really free to try?" she asked. "Yes, just one bite," Evan said. She took a piece, tasted it, and smiled. "This is good. I'll take one loaf." Evan's heart jumped. His first real sale. Another man, curious, came closer. "What's the price?" Evan told him. He also took a sample, nodded, and bought one. In the next hour, more people stopped. The smell of fresh bread, the polite smile, and the free sample started working. Some said, "I saw you here last week, but now you look more confident." Others said, "Your bread is warm and soft, much better than what we get from town." In 2 hours, all 5 loaves were gone, every single one sold. Evan packed his empty bag, wiped his forehead, and walked quickly to the town. This time, his steps felt light. He entered Mr. Patel's bakery and placed the money on the counter. Mr. Patel raised an eyebrow. "You sold all 5? "Yes, sir, all 5, Evan said with a calm voice. Mr. Patel gave a small nod. "Come back tomorrow, same deal." Evan smiled and said, "Thank you, I will." As he walked home, he looked at the sky. It was still cloudy, but it felt brighter than before. It was just a small win. Just 5 loaves. But for Evan, it was the first time he felt like his dream was not a joke. It was real. And he had just taken the first real step toward it. From that day, Evan started a new routine. Every morning, he woke up at 3:30. The village was still dark and the air was cold. He quietly got dressed, picked up his empty bag, and began his long walk to Mr. Patel's bakery. It took 2 hours to reach the town. By the time he arrived, his shoes were wet from the morning dew and his hands were freezing. But he didn't complain. Mr. Patel handed him the fresh bread without a word. Evan packed it carefully and began the walk back. He set up his stand near the park, just like before. He used the same sign, gave out samples, and smiled at every person. Some days he sold all the bread, some days he didn't. But every day he showed up. After 1 month, he had saved enough money to buy a second-hand bicycle. It had a broken bell and a torn seat, but it worked. Now he could reach the bakery faster. With the extra time, he began learning how to count money better. He wrote numbers in a small notebook and practiced speaking clearly to customers. He also started watching people more closely, how they reacted to each bite, what they liked, what they didn't say. He listened and learned. After 2 months, Evan bought a small wooden cart. It had wheels, a cover, and a shelf. He painted it white and blue and wrote his name on the side, Evan's Fresh Bread. People began to notice. Children waved at him. Old men stopped to chat. One woman said, "Your bread reminds me of when I was young." Another said, "I come here just for your smile." But behind the smile, Evan was tired. His body ached. He slept less. Some nights he didn't eat. Sometimes the bread didn't sell. Once a dog knocked over his cart and ruined everything. Still, Evan didn't stop. He spoke to every customer in his best English. He practiced new words every evening. He made small mistakes, but kept going. Slowly, his bread got better. Softer, tastier. His voice got stronger, his eyes more focused. He was not rich, he was not famous, but every day he was one step closer to the dream. The road was long, the work was hard, but Evan had changed. He was no longer just a boy with a dream. He was a man with a mission, and he was ready for whatever came next. One morning, as Evan rode his bicycle to his usual spot near the park, he saw something new. A big truck was parked near the town square. Workers were setting up colorful signs, a bright red awning, and a long glass counter filled with cakes, cookies, and shiny boxes of bread. A new bakery had arrived. The name was written in gold letters, Sunshine Sweets. It looked modern, clean, and expensive. Loud music played from speakers. Staff in matching uniforms handed out flyers and free cupcakes. People gathered quickly. Children pointed at the bright colors. Young couples took photos. An old man who always bought Evan's bread turned and said, "Let's see what this new place is offering." Evan stood beside his small cart. His wooden sign looked old next to the big banners. His samples were simple. His clothes were plain. In just 1 hour, his usual customers walked past him and went to the new shop instead. That day, Evan sold only 1 loaf. The next day, it was worse. He stood for 5 hours and sold nothing. People were curious about the new place. Some didn't even look at him. Others said, "Sorry, I'm trying the new bakery today." Evan sat behind his cart, watching the crowd grow across the street. He felt invisible again. Just like before, all the hard work, all the cold mornings, all the steps he had taken. It all felt small now. He returned home late, the bag still full of bread. His mother looked at him and asked gently, "Bad day?" Evan nodded but didn't speak. He went to his room and sat alone in the dark. The sound of laughter from the street echoed in his mind. "Is this the end?" he thought. "Did I come all this way just to lose again?" But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "No, not this time. You didn't come this far to stop now." The next morning, Evan woke up at the usual time, but he didn't go straight to the bakery. Instead, he sat at the table with a pen and notebook. He began writing down questions. Why are people going to the new shop? What do they like? What can I do better? Later that day, he stood near Sunshine Sweets, not to sell, but to observe. He watched how the workers greeted customers, how the cakes were displayed, how the shop was decorated with soft lights and clean colors. He listened to customers talking. One woman said, "Their cakes look beautiful." Another said, "It just feels nice in there." That evening, Evan walked to the small public library in the town. He used the free internet to search how to decorate bread, how to make cakes look beautiful, how to improve customer service. He watched videos, took notes, and practiced pronunciation of new words. Over the next week, Evan began to change. He used some of his savings to repaint his cart in bright yellow and added a small sign with a happy sun and the words, "Fresh," "Honest," "Homemade." He cleaned his cart every morning until it shined. He bought small paper bags and tied them with red ribbon. He began offering free hot tea with every loaf. It was a simple idea, but it made people stop. They smiled when he handed them the cup. Some stayed to chat, some took photos. He also started baking cookies in the evenings, using a small oven he borrowed from a neighbor. His mother helped measure the ingredients. His sister wrapped the cookies in clear plastic. They looked simple, but people loved them. One customer said, "You're improving so fast, Evan. I'm proud of you." Another said, "I tried the other place, but your bread has heart." Slowly, customers began returning. Not all, but enough. He didn't try to copy the fancy shop. He just made his cart feel warm, honest, and kind. Every day, he practiced speaking clearly. He asked customers, "How was the taste? What would you like next time?" He listened, learned, and improved. One day, a little girl handed him a drawing. It showed a boy with a bread cart and the words, "Evan's bread is the best." He smiled and put it on his cart for everyone to see. The new bakery was still popular, but Evan had something different. He had trust. He had heart, and most of all, he had grown, not just as a baker, but as a businessman. He was no longer chasing the dream, he was building it, piece by piece, day by day, with flour, fire, and faith. Months passed. The seasons changed. Evan's cart was now a familiar sight in the village. People no longer walked past him. They walked toward him. Every day he sold out his bread, cookies, and tea before noon. He was saving more than ever before. One evening, as he counted his earnings, his mother said softly, "Evan, it's time." "Time for what?" he asked. She smiled. "Time to open your bakery." Evan looked at her surprised. Could it really be time? He checked his savings again. It was enough, not for a big place, not for anything fancy, but enough to rent a small shop and buy basic equipment. The very next day, he visited a quiet street at the edge of the market. There was an old tea shop that had closed down months ago. The door was broken, the paint was peeling, and the floor was dusty. But to Evan, it looked perfect. He made a deal with the owner and spent the next 2 weeks fixing everything with his own hands. He painted the walls a warm cream color. He hung up small lights and put flower pots in the windows. His father helped build shelves. His sister made paper signs. His mother cleaned every corner, even when her back hurt. Finally, the day came. The sign above the door said, "Evan's Everyday Bakery." He opened the door at 6 in the morning. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. He placed loaves in baskets, cookies in glass jars, and a small kettle of hot tea near the entrance. Customers came in slowly at first, then more, then more. Some were neighbors, some were strangers, and some were people who had once ignored him. One old man said, "I remember when you stood outside in the rain. Look at you now." A young mother said, "My kids only eat your cookies." Children sat on the front steps, eating and laughing. Evan stood behind the counter, tired but proud. His bakery wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the fanciest, but it was full of warmth, full of kindness, and full of hope. Evan had done it. He had turned pain into power, rejection into respect, and a small dream into something real. And he was just getting started. As Evan stood behind the counter of his little bakery, he looked out the window at the busy street. People were laughing, children were playing, and the warm smell of fresh bread filled the air. It was a normal day, but for Evan, it was proof that nothing is impossible. He thought back to the cold mornings, the closed doors, the people who laughed, and the days he had nothing in his pocket but hope. He remembered the long walks, the ruined bread, and the nights when he slept in silence, wondering if his dream was too big. But he didn't give up. He didn't run away. He kept moving forward, even when everything felt heavy, even when his heart was tired. He had learned the truth the hard way. Nothing is free, not success, not respect, not even one smile from a stranger. Everything takes time, effort, and pain. But that pain, if you don't run from it, becomes your teacher. It makes you stronger. Evan's story is not just about bread. It's about belief, about staying in the fight when everyone else walks away, about taking small steps every day, even when no one claps for you. He started with nothing, but now he had something greater than money or fame. He had purpose, he had pride, and he had earned every bit of it. And so can you. Evan's story shows us that the road to success is never easy, but every small step matters. If you are learning English, chasing a dream, or facing hard days, remember this story. Remember Evan. Remember that nothing is free, but nothing is impossible either. Now let's use this story to improve your English. Repeat after me. These are powerful sentences from Evan's journey. Say them out loud, slowly and clearly. I will not give up. I am learning every day. Small steps lead to big changes. Pain is not the end, it is the beginning. Good job. Practice these sentences every morning. They will help your speaking and give you strength. Now here's a simple question for you. What is your dream? Write it in the comments. Just one sentence. You can say, I want to speak English fluently. Or, I want to open my own shop. Or maybe, I want to help my family. When you write your dream, you take the first step to making it real. And if this story helped you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to English Starline, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Keep watching our channel for more motivational stories, English listening practice, and tips to grow your fluency and confidence. Your journey is just beginning. We believe in you. See you in the next story.
Thanks for watching English Starline. Subscribe now to keep learning English through the amazing stories of famous lives.